Hi, welcome to our show today, and thank you for joining us on the Conscious Life Expo podcast. My name is Melanie, and I will be your host today. Today we have Rob Gauthier, and he is one of the most respected trance channelers in the world. And for quite some time, he has helped thousands of individuals with their clarity and life path. And so he also connects it with different types of ET consciousness to deliver messages and information for everybody. So welcome, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Good. And I know that you have been around quite some time. And for those who do not know about your story, let's just get a little bit of your back history and how you got started into being a channel. And we can also talk about your channeling and who you channel and how that helps individuals in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. My story is kind of complex, so I try to compress it. But the longest story short, I had my son at 19, and when he was born with some severe handicaps. He's got cerebral palsy, and that was a very heavy mental burden on me as a 19-year-old. Once it took 2 years to kind of find out the extent of his illness, and during the time I'm taking care of him and working, I ended up getting in a car crash, and the doctors put me on opiate pain medicine, and that ended up becoming a problem, a habitual issue. I got addicted to pain medication, and I went through about 8 years of heavy addiction. The time I got out of that was kind of a transitional phase, but by the time I fully got out of doing drugs and getting clean, I ended up starting to have feelings and emotions that I never had since I was a kid, a teenager. Um, I grew up in a Christian home, but also a very violent lifestyle. I hung out with a lot of people who were in gangs. So there was a lot of street life things that were happening, which is what made it easy to transition. And even though I pulled away from that when I had my kid, the drug life, from getting kicked out of doctors and having to resort to go back to the streets to find drugs, it pulled me right back in. And it was a rough transition. And after I get clean, I start looking for something. I always thought there was a God from my Christianhood time as a child and being taught about Christianity. I always felt there was a higher power or God. And I ended up looking, and because I had some UFO sightings and my friend had an experience with Bigfoot as a kid, I'm like, well, let's try to find answers to all of this. Um, it was a very, very heavy experience, but I ended up looking and finding a spiritualism church. I went there and they did a reading, and at that reading, the guy tells me about my kid. Now, this time is before Facebook was popular. I don't even think I was on Facebook at that time. MySpace was a thing still at that time. But I didn't share anything about my son or my life at that point on those platforms. And he was telling me about my son, and I didn't bring him with me, so he didn't meet him. And he was able to tell me about this and some things about my family and their history that I didn't even know until I spoke to my dad. So it was by far accurate. And I was like, wow. And the whole reason I pulled to the church in the first place was they said, we know what happens after people die. Once they die and go into the afterlife, we can tell you what God is and who God is because we can talk to people who are there with God. And I was like, that's amazing. So I stuck around the church, and I noticed most of the members of the church would do readings. They would do psychic readings. And I told the guy who I became friends with there, I was like, I really wish I could do this. This is something that's amazing. And he's like, everyone can do it. Hang out after our ceremonies during the day and come here and hang out with us when we're doing meditation. And I stayed and I learned. And, I got pretty good at meditating. I was getting little messages here and there, little audio voices in my ear, things like that. But it did hit a plateau. And I also became kind of disgruntled with the church because it was still very religious, very dogmatic. So I pulled away, and I did a lot of my own research, and finally found the Gateway by Hemisync, the Monroe Institute. So I started doing that, and that blew my meditation up to a whole new level. At this point, I was replacing my addiction with the meditation. So I was literally meditating 3 times a day for an hour, hour and a half. Plus, I was using a closed eye technique where I just sat around all day with my eyes closed like this. And I learned to feel energy. And that was a real important part too. Anyway, several months after I go through this gateway experience, and my meditation grows, I had a really rough night one night, and I went into meditation to kind of get out of that energy and fall back to my safe place in the meditation state. And that's where I met my first guide. And his name is Treb, and he is an extraterrestrial, extra dimensional being, with a physical appearance of a reptilian, and that scared me. And I thought my brain was broken. I thought the drugs had done damage to my brain or something, and it was pretty terrifying. After that, I ended up going into a meditation about 3 days later, because this being comes to me and tells me, I'm connected to you, we're related. The reality you're in isn't the one you think it is. And I thought I was crazy, but I also needed to know why that happened and if I could make it happen again. So I went back and I spent 2 years every day in meditation with Treb, talking to him, learning. He told me a lot of things that are being channeled now, the information about how we create reality, how we put energy into creation, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, all of that create. And, I finally said, hey, the energy that you've shared with me is life changing. If we could share this with other people, this would be amazing. I said, through my experience of listening to Treb for 2 years, and researching the things that he said, I bumped into channeling. And that's where I found, people who were out there back then, like Daryl Anka and Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, and Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar. So I'm like, can we do this? Can we channel like Jane Roberts did with Seth? Can we kind of bring that information through that way? And he said, yeah. So me and him worked on it. I read books. I went on the internet and looked how to channel, looked through everything. And finally, after about 4 months of working together, I was able to channel. And like the 5th or 6th time I ever channeled, I uploaded it to YouTube, and that was back around 2010. So from 2008 to 10, we were working on it. And then I learned to channel and instantly started sharing it. And after doing it a long time, I ended up connecting to my second guide, who is Aridif. He's a being who has blue skin, purple eyes, purple hair. Most people think it's a feminine being or a female, but it's not. He's a masculine being, a male. And he grew my channeling out a whole different way, just like Treb did for me learning. He grew it out. And pretty soon, all these people are coming to me for sessions because I'm sharing and taking people's questions and doing personal sessions with people. Then all these other beings start coming in. And a guy got a hold of me and wanted to write a book. And that's how I met Aridif. He asked, are there other beings who have messages? So Treb started bringing these beings in, and Aridif was one of them. And after Aridif, then literally over 1,000 ET beings at this point. And that's why, I got the nickname ET Whisperer, because I've channeled ETs and extra dimensionals from all sorts of different star systems, different dimensions, different realities. And it's been a crazy journey,
That's pretty impressive. And for those who don't know what channeling is, can you share with us what channeling is for you?
Yeah, for me, I'm a trance channeler. So for me, I go out of my body completely. And it's not like a slow motion lifting out of your body, looking down at what your body's doing, like some people describe an out of body experience. But it's like a dream state. When I go into meditation, I'm shooting out of my body and connecting with Treb and spending time with him wherever he's at. And my body, his consciousness comes into my body, and he's able to directly speak through me. Now, classic examples of this that people might be aware of are Edgar Cayce. He's probably the most famous channeler that ever lived. More recently, in the 1970s, 60s, 80s, Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth, the Seth material. which in my opinion is probably the best channeling that ever existed. And then more recently, people like Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, Daryl Anka channels Bashar. So these are examples. Lee Harris, who channels the Z's. These are channelers who are more probably likely that you bumped into them somewhere if you're in the spiritual community in general. And if you haven't, it's basically just that. You're connecting to this higher part of yourself. And that connects out to the beings who are in contact, because we have all these supportive systems of beings and angels, humans who have passed, ETs, EDs, extra dimensionals, ultra dimensional, all these types of different consciousnesses are in the universe. And in the universe, when you have higher understanding, then you know that you're a part of everything. So we've got all of these entities around us all the time who are supporting us in ways we don't see or perceive. And that's what channeling is learning how to tune in to the consciousness of one of your support teams or one of your guides or one of the beings who just, randomly bumps into when you're doing a meditation or opening your psychic awareness. So
Right. It's just like them coming in on that interdimensional highway, that channel path. And so tell us more about those individuals or beings that you are channeling and what messages they're bringing through.
yeah, the first being Treb. Like I said, he's physically a reptilian being, but he's actually a human reptilian hybrid and a benevolent one. I know reptilians get a bad rap, and I know there are a lot of reptilians who are based of a neutral to malevolent spectrum. My guides call that a type 2 neutral to malevolent. And that's true. There are a lot of them out there, but just like on Earth, no of one type of one thing is one way. You can't say, hey, because of this human being, the color of their skin makes them behave or do these things. That's horrible, right? That's racist. It's bad. The same with ETs. Not all reptilians are evil. Not all blonde-haired, blue-eyed Pleiadian style of beings are good. We're in a universe with duality. There is good and bad out there. And all of the types of beings that exist in the universe have a spectrum to be on. So Treb is a fifth density, benevolent human reptilian hybrid, and he comes from the star system called Capella, which in our night sky is 1 star, but it's actually a 4-star system. And he lives on one of the red dwarf stars that are in the Capella system. And then Aridif is a 6th density ancient Pleiadian Denebian being, which means he lives in a star we call Deneb, but their race migrated there from the Pleiades, which is where you hear the term Pleiadian. He is a very short, like about 3'6" to 3'9" is the average of their race. And they're very beautiful beings. They have long purple straight hair with purple eyes and a very light, pale powder blue skin. And he is amazing. Now, 6th density is a level of consciousness that Treb's race used to describe the evolution of a soul. And it's terms that have been used before, even though I'd not heard them before. I've traced it back. And it looks like multiple sources have multiple definitions. But his definition of 6th density is the last physical spot when you're evolving. So after you're done with 6th density, then you would become non-physical, more collective beings. And Treb's race is a 5th density consciousness, which is still a lot higher than humans. Humans are in that 3rd to 4th density transitional phase right now. But, 3rd density is what we experience. So they're very far removed, and the things that they teach are very similar, even though they both have distinctive personalities and the way that they express and the way that they come through me. They're both very connected to the idea of connecting to your own creative ability. If you ask them, hey, what should I do? They're going to say, we don't tell you what to do. But if you want to do things better for you, you got to start thinking about yourself in better ways. You have to see the power you have inside to create. You have to see yourself as equal. Don't look up to us because we're a higher dimension or high level of understanding. and they really just want to share the information. Now, both of these beings are considered type 1 beings, and a type 1 being is a being who doesn't infringe on the free will of other beings. They see themselves like all that is, oneness with everything. They see themselves as like a part of creation where they receive information from higher dimensions, and then they share that information back to the lower dimensions, because what's good for everyone is good for everyone. They're very collective in that sense. And type 2 is a spectrum. Type 2 is like human beings. Human beings can be very loving and benevolent and selfless, and do for others without necessarily considering themselves. And then you have really malevolent human beings who are very selfish and only do for themselves. And that's where type 2s are. So type 2 being a spectrum, there's a lot of really loving, benevolent races out there who are type 2, but they don't really see oneness. They might say, hey, we love this race and we don't care about this race, and this race is doing something bad to this, so we'll step in and interfere. Even though it's good for the race they're helping, it's still not a part of oneness. They're not acting or behaving through the lens of oneness. So that's kind of the distinguishment between those two too.
Nice. And then, so the information that they're providing, and I know that you're doing one-on-one sessions with individuals who have their own personal questions and interests, but are you also doing larger events? And I guess that leads me to my next question. Is this going to be your first time at the Conscious Life Expo?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I do one-on-one sessions, but this year's the last year I'm doing those. We switched over to be able to get more questions answered. My wife and I have two special needs kids, my son, and our daughter who's 4 years old. So our days are filled with that, and in the evenings I do my channeling, but I also have a really long waiting list. So it's kind of expensive to get a session, and there's a 3 month wait, sometimes maybe 4 months to get a session. So we wanted to make sure more people could get more things answered, and most people only have one or two or three really important questions. So we're transitioning into a 3 question thing where I can do a 10 or 15 minute channeling for each person and do several in a day, and then just give them their recordings individually, and that will help people get more of that. But yeah, we've been doing events. My wife and I just started back. My daughter was also born with some things where she had her fourth surgery right before her fourth birthday. So we've had to kind of take our road life off the burner for 4 years now, and we're just getting back to it this last year. Um, we did the Sedona event. We're doing another one in Sedona for the Sedona Transcendence retreat and the Sedona Ascension retreat, which is the same person who runs those. So we're doing that in March, and that one has Daryl Anka, Wendy Kennedy, a lot of really big names. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm bad with names. And we're doing events like that. We're also doing one in Mount Shasta with Ruben Langdon, who did the interview with Extra Dimensionals, and they're going to have a lot of great people there too. But we're also doing the channel panel. The channel panel is something my wife and I did. It's an all channelers event. We did really amazing events before. In like 2017, we had Daryl Anka and Wendy Kennedy and Lee Harris, and Sean Swans, and just a really bunch of great channelers. And we're going to be doing that in 2025 in Sedona. It's going to be really fascinating. So this year we're going to be doing less with the like the 3 question things that we're transitioning into, and do more things on the road, and more written material and things like that, because we want as many people who are interested and want to connect with us. We really believe that we should be available as much as we can for the most people. Although it's nice for people to do one-on-one, it really helps that one person. I only ever channeled to help people get the information in their lives if they want it, if they resonate with it, like I did with mine with Treb. The first 3 or 4 years I channeled, I didn't charge a penny. It only came to the time where I was like, am I going to keep my day job, or am I going to help more people with channeling? And the answer was obvious. So I started charging and actually doing it as a job. And that, brings us to where we're at now, where the demand for channeling is so high right now with people, and the back weight and all. We just want to get out to as many people who want us to be there and who want the information, the things that they share that help people understand the power they have internally. It's life altering, and it's great to help, 5, 6, 7 people in a week, but it would be way better to help 100 people in a week, or do an event with 100 people or 1,000 people on live stream. So that's where we're putting our focus.
Yeah, no, that's great that you're assisting others. And with this expo event that you're going to be, that's going to be February 9th. That's going to be Friday, February 9th, 4 o'clock to 4:45. You're going to be doing a free lecture. So that's going to be helping people learn to connect to their own guides, and in that extreme powerful way as well. And so tell us about that event and what we can expect there.
Yeah, I've taught channeling for almost as long as I've channeled. I've taught thousands of people how to channel, and channeling is something that's very important for everyone to learn how to do. I think the more people who want to channel, who do channel, the better off our earth is, because they can get the insight. We have blind spots. We're humans. We all have issues. We're living in a very dense place with a very dense energy. So we have blind spots, and channeling helps us with our blind spots because we're getting these external perspectives. So I want to teach people how to connect to their own guides. And some of that will be through teaching techniques of channeling and other to sharpen intuition and open that energy. We've had a lot of success when teaching channeling. It's probably one of my favorite things to do too, because as a trance channeler, I'm not involved with that conversation, and it's nice to be able to teach channeling and be involved in the chat with everybody, and kind of see how it's impacting them in the moment instead of just hearing about it afterwards. So.
Right. And that can be such a process to learn. So thank you for teaching this and holding that space for individuals to embrace that within themselves. It's very important. Thank you.
Well,
And
thank you.
you also have another workshop at the Expo that's coming up in February. That's going to be Sunday, February 11th. That's going to be 2 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. And that one is a come meet your guides. And so you'll be doing an interactive Q&A and a channel with Treb. Is that right?
With Aridif and Treb, but also our intention is when people come up and ask the questions, for their own guides to come in, because Aridif and Treb help me connect to these other beings. If there's a guide that's working with that person that's available to come through and connect, what will happen is my guides connect to their energy as they're connected to me. So I'm able to channel this third party being, that's why I've channeled so many ETs. And it's not so much that I channel them directly, but I channel Treb and Aridif, who also are able to channel those beings through them. So I want people to quite literally meet the guides that are working with them, so that they can ask them the questions more directly. And I found too, with a lot of people who want to learn to channel, one of their first hurdles is, I don't know who my guides are. I don't know how to channel anything. Who am I going to channel if I do learn to channel? This is a very big step for people to learn what consciousnesses are there, what are available, what are really excited to work with them or connect with them. Because I can guarantee I've never met a person who's wanted to learn to channel or who is interested in knowing who their guides were that didn't have a guide that was really, really excited to come and connect. Every time there's a guide that's like, hey, I want to connect with you and work with you and learn from you and teach you. As humans, we have this perspective like, oh, we're channeling these beings and they're teaching us, and we're learning because they're very bright and we're very dumb. Humans are small, and that's not true at all. My guide, Aridif, says very, very strongly and very often, when we're connecting to you, we're looking at parts of your energy that we never saw. And when we're doing that, because all of us are one, it gives us a chance to see the parts of us that we never saw. So then he always says, thank you for, like we congratulate you for growing and learning about yourself, and we thank you for helping us learn about ourselves. And I always found that to be very powerful.
Yeah, I love that. That's a very beautiful departing and connecting message as well. And is there anything else about the workshop or lecture that we can expect? Or is there anything that we can do to prepare ourselves for that as well?
Yeah, I would say if you're trying to learn to channel, if you're coming to the 45-minute, or even if you're coming to the 90-minute or both, if you have an excitement about learning to channel, go to my YouTube. Second or third playlist down is the Learn How to Channel playlist. And I teach 2 channeling classes, which are the base classes that I teach. So if you want to be ahead of the game and already get some of that prerequisite classes so that it helps you learn, or just, you want to learn it, go there and check that out, because that's going to be the most instrumental tool you can use to help with the channeling process when I'm trying to teach you how to connect to your guides. I think that's the best bet.
Definitely. And what is your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's the ET Whisperer Rob Gauthier. If you put in ET Whisperer, like whisper with an extra ER in the end, you can find it. If you know how to spell my last name, you can also just type that up. But my last name, you're one of the very few people in the world who ever pronounce it the same way that me and my family do. Most of the time, people are Gauthier or Gauthier or any variant. Gauthier is another way, but yeah, if you know how to spell Gauthier, you can always type in Rob Gauthier, but most people don't. So ET Whisper is probably the easiest way to find it.
Definitely. And then what is your website?
Yeah, it's www.etwhisper.com.
Okay, wonderful. And then that's where anyone can reach out to you for contact events. And we also have your social links on there as well. So we will share those. And is there any other workshops or events on your website that we need to be familiar with?
Just the one that's going in Sedona. That's the only one we're announcing now. Once we get the channel panel up and around, we'll have that up on the channel panel website, which is a different website, but we'll also have it on the ET Whisper. Signing up for my email list is probably the best way to stay in contact with anything that we're doing in the future. Because there's so many different social medias, we don't always connect to all of them with certain things. We might forget one thing here, one thing there. But if it's the email list, you're always going to know what we're up to.
All right, wonderful. I will add the links for everyone to locate your lecture and your workshop for the expo. We will have those dates. Is there any other last messages or insight from you or even Treb or your guides that you would like to share with us today?
The one thing I'll add about being at the expo, I've also got a booth, and I'm not going to be selling anything at the booth. I'm just there to hang out with people. So if you want to come say hi, just come to the booth and hang out with me. Because that's why I'm really most excited to go there, is just to meet people and connect with people. But yeah, the thing that my guides always share that have been really important, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, is connecting in community is an important thing. We kind of saw the world change a lot through the last 3 or 4 years. So finding people who are excited about the same things you are, finding people who resonate with you, and doing what you can with them so you don't have to be dependent on systems or other people. uh Connecting, just being able to spend time with each other emotionally, mentally, supporting each other and doing things together, it really is the key for us as a society to go to the next level, to rebuild a lot of those systems that we saw in the last few years that were so broken down, that don't work anymore. I know it's kind of cliche and corny to say we're a new human, but we are. The level of this generation of people and human beings is way different than any other generation, and the expansion that we have as humans inside of us, inside of our heart and mind, and with our consciousness itself, it's next level and it's here. So, use that and have fun with life and enjoy it and try to do the best you can to connecting to other people who enjoy the same things you do and enjoy life the same way you do. It only makes it better. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob. And we look forward to having you at the expo with the lecture and workshop. And I will make sure that your contact information is out there for everyone as well. So thank you,
thank you.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Conscious Life Expo.